Welcome back to Sunday Night Storytime. Today we are reading with Mr. Hobbs.
Today in Storytime, I'm going to read a story about a dog, a dachshund named Hobbs. The title of the book is Hobbs Goes Home. The authors are Tammy and Bruce Zeman. The authors are the people who tell the story. The illustrator is Shauna Peterson. The illustrator is the person who draws the pictures to help tell the story. Hobbs Goes Home has become one of my favorite books. Of course, everyone loves a story about a dog, and this is a true story. It really happened. Some of this story is very sad, but it has a happy ending. Hobbs and I have the same name, only he spells his name by the Old English spelling. Our daughter Jenna has a dog named Urban that is part dachshund. His face looks exactly like Hobbs's face, but Urban's legs are much longer. We call Urban our naughty boy. My wife and I have a little dog named Sissy. I believe you will like Hobbs Goes Home so well you will ask your teacher to read it to you again. Before we get started, I have to put my glasses on. Some of you may have to wear glasses too, and it's okay because our glasses help us see things better. Hobbs Goes Home. Hobbs was confused. His mommy put him in the car and brought him to a big brown building. They went inside, and she handed him to a lady he had never seen before. What was Mommy doing? Where were they? Dogs were barking, and there were cats too. Hobbs didn't understand why his mommy brought him to this strange place. Hobbs' mommy gently touched his head and said he would be safe here, and the mean man couldn't hurt him anymore. She told him not to worry. A new mommy would come soon. Hobbs' mommy said goodbye. Hobbs watched as she walked out of the strange building. He wondered where his mommy was going, and would she come back? What if he didn't like the new mommy? Hobbs was afraid. Have you ever been afraid? I have many times. A few days went by, though Hobbs still missed his mommy. The people at the shelter took good care of him, and he started to feel better. Hobbs had 2 meals a day, and snacks too. Our dogs love their snacks. Hobbs loved to eat. It was one of his favorite things to do. Hobbs got 2 walks each day, another one of his favorite things to do. Our dogs love their walks also. In the morning, a smiling lady walked him, and a different lady, who was also very nice, walked him before bedtime. Hobbs wondered if one of these ladies could be the new mommy he was waiting for. He would get so excited, wag his tail, and when they went for a walk, but he didn't like it when they left. Hobbs wanted his new mommy to come soon. Hobbs learned this strange building he was in was called an animal shelter. An animal shelter is a place where animals come to find new homes. There were many different animals: cats, kittens, dogs, puppies, bunnies, hamsters, birds, and even a duck waiting to be adopted by new families. The shelter was not very big. With so many animals, Hobbs had to stay in one place. He had his own room with 3 walls and a front row of bars. Hobbs didn't mind the room because he could watch other animals and people coming into the shelter. The shelter was filled with many new sounds: tweet, tweet, quack, 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 and meows. Hobbs wondered about the cats and the kittens. They didn't bark like dogs, and instead they made a meow sound Hobbs thought was funny. They were all different colors too. Some were orange with white stripes. Some were brown with black stripes. And there were black cats and cats that were all white. There were even cats that were black and white, like an Oreo cookie. My mom had a cat that was black and white. She didn't call it Oreo, but she called it Cookie. And then there was the hair. Some had short hair, Some had long hair, and there was even a funny-looking cat with no hair. Hobbs noticed one long-haired cat who was blue and had a mushed-in nose. Hobbs wondered, how could he smell with that nose? The animal shelter was an interesting place, filled with many new smells. Being a dachshund, Hobbs had a very good sense of smell. He would stick his long nose into the cat's room. The cats smelled different and acted differently too. They were not always friendly. One time, when Hobbs was going outside, he stuck his nose in the cat room, and Moses, an orange-striped cat, took a swipe at his nose. Hobbs was only trying to be friendly. He didn't expect to get his nose popped. Luckily, Hobbs backed up quickly, and Moses missed him. Moses gave Hobbs a look that said, "I'll get you next time." Hobbs didn't like bullies, and he decided he would keep his nose away from Moses. He wished he could talk to his new mommy. Mommies always know what to do. Not all the cats were unfriendly. Tuxedo, a black cat, and White Kitty wanted to be friends, and Hobbs liked that. Each day on his way outside, Hobbs walked by Tuxedo's room, and Tuxedo would try to rub his head on Hobbs's long nose. It tickled. Hobbs wanted to stay and play with Tuxedo, but the ladies at the shelter were always so busy taking care of the animals, they never had time. "Come on, Hobbs," they would say. "Let's finish our walk." Hobbs didn't mind the shelter during the day. It was a busy place. People were always coming to play with him, feed him, or take him out. There was even a playground where he ran around and played with other dogs. Nighttime was different. The people went home. The animals were alone. The building was quiet and dark, with only a small nightlight. Hobbs didn't like the nighttime at the shelter. He was lonely, and the dark scared him. Through the darkness, Hobbs would sometimes hear a whimper from one of the other dogs, or a long, whiny meow from one of the cats. Hobbs knew they were scared too. Hobbs wished his new mommy would come soon. He started to get tired and felt his tiny eyes droop as he fell asleep, dreaming about what a new home and family would be like. Woof, 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 meow. Hobbs opened his eyes. The sound became familiar as a new day began in the shelter. Hobbs was getting used to the routine. Breakfast, a quick walk outside, dinner, then bedtime. The days started to run together until one day when something very different happened. One of the shelter volunteers came in with a man. He had a beard, mustache, and bright blue eyes. His whole life, Hobbs had only known one other man, a mean man, the reason his mommy brought him to the shelter. He didn't think the nice people here would let another mean man see him, would they? What if this man would hide being mean, just like the mean man had done when no one else was around? Hobbs was scared. Hobbs was so afraid he couldn't bark. Would this man hurt him too? As the volunteer opened the door to Hobbs' room, he pressed himself against the back wall. "Come on, Hobbs," she said. "Someone's here to see you." Hobbs still didn't move. The man bent down and lifted his arm, and as he did, Hobbs was sure he was going to get hit, just like the mean man had done to him. He closed his eyes and waited, but nothing happened. Instead of hitting him, the man with the bright blue eyes gently rubbed Hobbs on the head. "It's okay, little buddy," the man said. "I promise you, no one will ever hurt you again." The man pulled Hobbs close and cuddled him. Hobbs wasn't afraid anymore. He actually felt safe in the man's arms, and he fit so perfectly. With Hobbs in his arms, the man walked outside to the playground. He put Hobbs down and said, "Go ahead, little buddy. Run around and have fun." Hobbs looked up at the man and saw he was smiling. Hobbs hesitated. Then the man said, "It's all right. Go ahead and play." Hobbs started to run, his big brown ears flapping in the wind and his tail wagging. Urban's ears flap when he runs too. Hobbs was having so much fun running around and playing, he didn't notice the man with the bright blue eyes taking his photograph. He didn't know the man was sending the pictures to someone very special. Who could that be? Hobbs and the man with the bright blue eyes played in the playground until the shelter volunteer called them to come inside. "Come on, Hobbs," she said. "Time for dinner." Hobbs was having fun and didn't want to go inside, even to eat, which was one of his favorite things to do. The man with the bright blue eyes scooped him up and brought him back inside the shelter. As their eyes met, he gently rubbed Hobbs' ears. Hobbs had so much fun with the man, he started to feel sad he was leaving. The man looked at Hobbs and promised he would be back. The next day began like every other day at the shelter. Breakfast, a quick walk outside, and back to his room. But for some reason, this day felt different. Hobbs had just come back inside when he heard a familiar voice. It was the man with the bright blue eyes. He came back just like he promised he would. The man scooped Hobbs up and gently cuddled him. "You and I are going to be the best of buddies," he said. "The very best." Hobbs liked the way that sounded. The man with the bright blue eyes took Hobbs outside and said he had a surprise. Hobbs wondered what the surprise was. When they got to the playground, there was a woman with curly brown hair and a shaggy gray and white dog. The pretty woman came over and picked Hobbs up. "He's so cute," she said. "I knew from the photograph he was an amazing soul." As she held him, she squeezed him tight. So tight, Hobbs thought he might explode. But it also felt good. The pretty woman cuddled Hobbs, kissed him, and rubbed his ears. Hobbs liked the pretty woman and the shaggy dog, too. "Do you like your surprise?" asked the man with the bright blue eyes. Hobbs looked at the man and then at the pretty woman. She smiled at him and said, "I'm your new mommy." Hobbs was so happy he started to wag his tail. "Welcome to our family, Hobbs," they said together. "Your family." Hobbs was going home. The end. In loving memory of Nikki, the best big sister I could ever hope for. I hope you enjoyed Hobbs Goes Home, and I hope you get to share some of your stories about your pets with your teacher and your classmate, because our pets help improve our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs, for reading with us tonight.
You're welcome.